Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. You know, when we look at a society deeply fractured by systemic segregation, discrimination, and poverty, history usually points us toward one inevitable outcome: political revolution. But what if there was another way? Today, we're going to examine how one man, Nicholas Bhengu, navigated the extreme tensions of apartheid-era South Africa using a completely unexpected catalyst.
It really all boils down to this one massive question. Can the gospel actually transform a society without morphing into just another political movement? That is the exact question that defined the life and ministry of Nicholas Bhengu. He was a Zulu Evangelist born in 1909 who offered a totally alternative solution to a nation that was quite literally tearing itself apart. He didn't have immense wealth, he didn't hold political office, but he had a vision big enough to reach an entire continent.
And his unconventional answer? Spiritual transformation. While his society was going through one of the most painful periods in its history, fractured by systemic racism and a devastating loss of human dignity, the sources show Bhengu firmly believed that transformed hearts were the absolute key to producing transformed communities. It's this fascinating, inside-out approach to societal change that stood in sharp contrast to the prevailing political movements of his time.
Moving on to Section 1, A Nation Deeply Divided, Apartheid South Africa. To truly grasp Bhengu's impact, we first have to understand the brutal environment of racial segregation he was operating in.
Now, his path to becoming a legendary preacher definitely wasn't an overnight thing. He was born in 1909 in Zululand at a Lutheran mission station, but he actually spent his early adulthood working all sorts of regular jobs. He was a clerk, a teacher, a health inspector, and, this is crucial, a court interpreter. That interpreting gig gave him an incredible knack for cross-cultural communication. Then, right around age 21, everything shifts. He experiences this dramatic Christian conversion at a revival meeting in Kimberley. After that, he hits the books at Dumaza Bible School from 1934 to 1936 and is formally ordained into Christian ministry in 1937.
Which brings us to his ultimate defining conviction. Right after that conversion, he put it simply, "I must reach my people." Christianity was no longer just the religion he grew up with. It was a deep, personal calling. He realized he had this immense responsibility to take his message directly to African communities. And he knew he had to do it in a way they would fundamentally understand, culturally and spiritually, bridging those exact same linguistic boundaries he used to navigate as a court interpreter.
Section 2, the Back to God Crusade, a mass African movement. This deep personal conviction birthed a massive campaign aimed directly at expanding urban centers.
See, Bhengu recognized that South Africa's future was rapidly becoming urbanized. Families were pouring into expanding towns, townships were exploding in size, and naturally, social problems were multiplying right alongside them. So officially launching around October 1950 in East London, his rallying cry for these crusades was incredibly simple but unforgettable: back to God. He was practically pleading with people caught up in crime, destructive habits, and spiritual emptiness to completely turn their lives around. It was a message that cut right through the chaos of the urban struggle and gave a clear, direct path forward for folks who were feeling totally lost.
And just look at the momentum. By 1959, the movement had established 50 assemblies. Think about that. 50 assemblies in less than a decade. He didn't just show up, host a highly emotional meeting, and then bounce. Not at all. He was a master organizer. He rapidly planted local churches, trained up leaders, and built this massive network of congregations that spread like wildfire across South Africa and even into neighboring countries.
Section 3, Empowering Leadership, African Independence. What really made Bhengu's approach so revolutionary was his radical stance on church structure and autonomy.
Back then, the standard foreign missionary model honestly bred a lot of dependency. It relied heavily on foreign money, foreign leadership, and foreign decision-making. But Bhengu, he completely flipped the script. He insisted on a strictly indigenous model, one that was self-governing, self-supporting, and self-propagating. He taught African Christians, hey, you can fund your own buildings, you can train your own leaders, and you can send out your own missionaries. He basically transformed the whole structure from a source of dependency into an absolute engine of personal responsibility.
And a huge ideological shift came right along with that. For a long time, the underlying assumption was essentially, you need to become European in order to be Christian. It was often pushed as a foreign religion imposed on Africans. Well, Bhengu absolutely shattered that idea. His core message was, retain your African identity. By doing this, he actively validated African dignity in a society that was systematically trying to erase it. He preached in a way that was authentically African, working tirelessly to restore a sense of self-confidence to his people.
Section 4. Peaceful transformation, uniting divided groups. So, instead of political mobilization, Bhengu leaned entirely into spiritual transformation to unite these heavily fractured communities.
He achieved this unity by preaching what he called a holistic Christian life. We're talking personal discipline, solid family life, financial responsibility, and good old-fashioned hard work. For Bhengu, Christianity was definitely not just a Sunday event confined to a church building. It was an everyday, 24/7 lifestyle. He pushed ordinary believers to achieve material independence and personal confidence through diligent work, education, and community development. He was literally trying to rebuild society block by block.
And here's something incredibly progressive about his ministry. He actively empowered African women. During a trip to the US in 1960, Bhengu actually had a vision while in Brooklyn that told him to go back to South Africa and organize women for ministry. He absolutely refused to let women just be spectators in the pews. Under his leadership, they became evangelists, organizers, and major players in socioeconomic development. Modern scholars actually give this a lot of attention because it was just so remarkably ahead of its time.
Section 5. A lasting legacy. Jesus for Africa. Ultimately, Bhengu built an infrastructure that earned him the title of the Black Billy Graham of Africa. He used these super punchy slogans like Jesus for Africa and Cape to Cairo to drive his mission forward. His goal was to spread an authentically African expression of Pentecostal evangelism across the entire continent. And it worked. The Back to God movement blew right past national borders, extending its reach deep into neighboring countries like Zimbabwe.
If we look at his lasting impact, it really rests on a few core pillars. He made evangelism truly indigenous. He planted self-supporting churches that didn't need outside cash. And he beautifully intertwined faith with human dignity. He consistently preached peaceful transformation over violence, and he firmly believed that Africa could evangelize Africa. The historical record makes it clear. He proved without a doubt that African Christians could successfully lead and sustain massive, self-governing movements, even when facing immense political opposition.
Nicholas Bhengu passed away on June 5, 1985 at the age of 75. But here is the real takeaway. The death of the evangelist did not mean the death of the movement. Because he had spent his entire life building rock-solid institutions, demanding financial independence, and empowering local leaders, that back-to-God vision kept thriving long after he was gone.
The quiet, undeniable power of Nicholas Bhengu really relied on this exact progression. Changed hearts lead to changed families. Changed families lead to changed communities. And changed communities eventually lead to changed cities. He deeply believed that true, lasting societal change doesn't always kick off in a parliament building or on a battlefield. It starts from the inside out, just one transformed life at a time.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. If true societal transformation really does begin in the human heart, how might Bhengu's peaceful, indigenous approach apply to the deeply divided societies of our world today? Could this model of inner transformation, bridging cultural gaps, actually be the blueprint for healing our modern world? Thank you for exploring this history with me in this explainer, and keep seeking out the powerful ideas that shape our world.